I am delighted to welcome my friend, my mentor, my buddy, the man, the myth, the legend, if you believe, coffee cup and his children, Mr. Sherman Hu. How are you, buddy?
Yes, thank you. Hey, Steve. Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
You too.
Yeah,
How's things going in over there in sunny Canada?
really good. It's 10 in the morning. It's beautifully sunny out. My view from my office looks at this mountainscape that's just gorgeous. So I can see
I've seen
it's
it.
just a gorgeous day. Yeah, yeah.
I've seen it. I'm jealous. Yeah. So Sherman, you and I first met, and I remember it like it was yesterday. In fact,
2008.
2008 in Atlanta.
Yes,
Stomping It
long time
live.
ago.
And you were part of the faculty, and I'd bugged the hell out of Andy Jenkins about the video dude that was doing all the videos. And all of a sudden you were standing there, and I think I pounced on you and I went, "You're Sherman." And you were like, "Ah, who's this dude?" And I think I commandeered you for most of the weekend. I think you managed to go and get your breakout session, but I commandeered you for a majority of that weekend.
Steve, don't follow me into the loo. I need a break.
No. But you might get your camera out. What are you doing in there? It's a puppet show.
Is that a drone? Is that a mini drone you got going there, Steve?
So we've had loads of laughs, loads of conversations, lots of it about video, lots of it about digital marketing. And there's obviously lots of things that I remember about our conversations and events. But the one thing that sticks out in mind was when I was helping a friend of mine promote something called the dive flag. And it was a emergency flag for scuba divers. And I had to go and shoot video on a boat. Yes, and we had a really, really long conversation about the fact that I didn't know how to film on a boat, because boats go up and down, and that means the camera's going up and down, which doesn't make for good recording. And I remember you said gyroscope, get yourself a gyroscope. I managed to get one, and the filming was going really, really well. It was a really still day. But the one thing that we hadn't discussed, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but the one thing that we never discussed was working with actors. They need a cue, and the cue is normally action. But when they're 25 feet under the water, they can't hear you. And I stood on the boat and I started giggling to myself, and everybody on the boat was like, "What?" And I just went, "Action." And then all of a sudden I was in this position where I had nothing to film for about 15 minutes because they just didn't surface. They said, "Well, we went down, but we didn't know what to do when we were down."
Oh man, that is brilliant.
That was the outcome of that. But we did actually get a couple of hours of footage that we could use, including a fantastic moment when somebody came out waving one of the flags, and a boat actually came over to see if they needed rescuing, despite the fact that there was another boat by the side of them. So it was quite an entertaining.
Oh man, I didn't know about this. I did not know about this.
I didn't think I told you
the action part.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times.
Lights, camera, action. But yeah. Sherman, you've been doing this for 20 years. You know, you're very much like myself. You know, I mean, I worked out the first website that I designed and developed online was 25 years ago. And you start thinking to yourself, I'm really long in the tooth for this now, especially when you see these young kids coming through and all the rest of it. And I had an apprentice a few years ago who was an IT apprentice, and he is now doing digital marketing. And I inadvertently answered a question that he had asked in a forum the other day. He came back and he turned around and he said, "How are you so knowledgeable? How do you know all this stuff?" And it's just like, we make it up on the spot. We don't really know anything. And I didn't know that that's not strictly true. And it is down to method, and it is down to everything. So the big one for me is, and the reason for starting this podcast is because obviously there's a lot of information out there for people, and there's a lot of misconception about what's really, really good, what's really bad, and all the rest of it. So I have two questions for you today. and
Mm-hmm.
2 points of discussion. So the first question is, what is the one thing, apart from you, that doesn't work in digital marketing?
Been a 20-year practice of what doesn't work.
I think between us, we've spent enough hours on what doesn't work to find out what actually. And there might be some good stuff in there as well. So, what's the
Yes.
big thing at the moment that you're seeing that doesn't really work?
I mean, I come from the point of view or the lens of somebody who's been in the client service business since I started, and coming from the point of view of I'm somebody who loves to add value to somebody one-on-one. So when a client wins, I feel that same victory myself. And so I've always been in client business, and every time I serve clients, it's always to do with SEO, GMB, video engagement, websites. And I've seen a shift from clients who want just visibility to now being savvy to go, I don't want the ego stroke of being number one. I actually want the traffic that comes in to turn into leads or phone calls that I can then come up to plate, swing it, and hit a home run and turn that into a sale. So what doesn't work is the fascination or obsession with being number one, just the visibility. And so sort of pivoting and going, how can I help a client who still maybe is fascinated by being number one to appreciate the value of quality leads that come in that they can then turn into sales? And how do you track it from, let's say, an ad to a landing page to a form fill, or an ad to the landing page to a phone call, like click to call? How do I track it? And not only to show proof of you know what you're doing and you can deliver results, but you have proof, actually recordings and metrics to show that, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, what you think doesn't work is not true. This is the proof of the recorded phone calls to show you that what I do works. And because you should care about these metrics, here's proof that what we're doing, the whole campaign, is working. Because there are many, many clients who still do not know the metrics. And as a result of not knowing the metrics, it's just a habit throughout their entire lives where they don't have any granular control of the campaign metrics. And so they just paint it with a brush of, I just don't feel like this is working.
Yeah.
And so I would say what's not working is the empty calories of being at the top. But what is working in that scenario is tracking it, even some basic tracking. But because a lot of what I do is Google Ads or SEO or GMB, I put call metrics in to track that. And we actually recently turfed a client, closed out the campaign, because even with the proof, they were still ignorant or rude about those not being quality leads. And we just don't need the headaches of that. And so we said, time to pull the plug. And we just pulled 5 different things and the campaign was done. So.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing that you've said there is having that, the funnel and the journey in place, so that, all aspects of the journey are working. Because that's one of the big things that always comes back to us, is that when things aren't working, right, okay, well, this is missing. You're missing a stage. And if you miss a stage, it's like walking up to a client and punching them in the head and just saying, buy my stuff. And we all know that doesn't really work. And right, unless you keep punching them and just take their wallet. So that's right. The whole, it's not working because the following the metrics and all the rest of it. And again, really interesting that you say that, because Ryan Dice did a presentation on the growth triad and the three things that work for predictable growth. And it's the documented journey, actually having something documented so that you can't optimize it if it's not documented. Having also the tools and the tactics in place, as you mentioned, video and the call, the tracking and things like that, but also having actionable metrics, because that's the one thing that we come up against. And we had a conversation before we started recording about I've got a client that's obsessed with being ranked in the top 3 for a vanity key phrase. And having the conversation with him today, he was like, yes, but now we are ranked number 3. We get a lot more traffic. Like, yeah, but no more sales. You've paid an awful lot of money to be ranked up there, but you're not getting any more sales from it. Whereas if you look back over time, when we were doing the long tail stuff and we were concentrating on that sort of thing, then there's a massive difference between the two. And the benefits of having that traffic compared to the traffic that is just doing research, if you like.
That's right.
There's a massive difference between the two. So it's really interesting to hear you say that the not having the metrics in place is a big no-no for
I mean, because I can't boast about having metrics forever since I started, but it's as of late, I've just recognized how important it is, just like in our business systems. And I used to just love the freedom of just flying by the seat of my pants and trying different things. But the older I get, I realize, hey, having systems and routines are just brilliant. It just saves you so much time and painful agony of recreating the wheel every time.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. Sherman Hu's all grown up.
just as of yesterday.
As of yesterday. So that's obviously a really good one of what doesn't work. Now, I know you could talk forever about what does, because you get amazing results for your clients and you work very, very closely with them. So what is the big thing for you at the moment that is getting really good top results for your clients?
Wow, this one, I could approach it from a couple, 3 angles, but let me just talk out of the top of my head here. One thing that many clients or even many practitioners may have this myth in their head is that organic traffic or SEO or GMB traffic is free, and paid traffic, as in Google ads and such, is paid traffic. While no traffic is free, because you're either investing your time, your blood, sweat, and tears, or you're paying to play. And later on in my journey, I realized, you know what? It's all paid traffic. And so, our buddy Jerry West has always been about pay to play right away so you can see the metrics that work. And so one thing that I have been highly recommending clients to do is test the market with a very optimized ad campaign to see what converts, and then leverage that metric into your organic campaigns. And that has worked really well, along with well-built landers and call metrics in place, that kind of thing. The other thing is, because I serve a lot of local clients and clients that have, service, whether it's essential or non-essentials businesses, essential service businesses, is that I tell them to look on their own mobile phone and do a search for a service that's local. And typically what's on their phone, which, as you and I know, 60 to 80% plus of traffic come from mobile traffic, mobile searches. What is the real estate that is above the fold on your phone? And that's typically Google ads, or in certain markets, Google guaranteed ads. And then below that is the 3-pack of the map listings. That's before you scroll down. Actually, in fact, ads sometimes take so much space that you might see one map listing before you scroll down. So if that's the prime real estate that Google is telling us what matters to them, and your customers see that first, don't you think we should occupy those entities, that real estate? And so that's what we drive towards. That's what we focus towards, to give their browsing prospects, as quick as possible, those assets as theirs that they can click on. And Google's done such a great job of making it really inconvenient for people to get to a website now, where you can get what you need from a first glance at a map listing. How many people reviewed it? What's their star rating? Where they're located? A click to call number sometimes. You can click through to find details about the listing and then click to call, and you call the local business. And not many times are you wanting to go into a website unless you're trying to do some research and some competitive intelligence. So what's working is, well, that's what I tell my clients anyway, is what's above the fold. Let's focus on that. Let's get you a strong presence in that area so that you can get the click to calls and the clicks to your assets or the phone calls ringing in your office. So that is, Steve, the one other thing I wanted to share, which is really, what I'm about to share is kindergarten level compared to what you are doing, which is college and university level, is understanding. Okay, so Don Miller wrote a book, an Amazon bestseller called Story Brand. And then he recently came out with a book called Marketing Made Simple. But story branding, leveraging the power of story that all blockbuster Hollywood movies use as a sequence on your landing page or your homepage. And even something so simple as the idea of call to actions on the page, having a dating call to action and a marriage call to action. So the marriage call to action is call me, book now, buy this now. And then the dating call to action is download this free PDF or download this free video in exchange of your information, name, email address. And I call it the ethical bribe. And so even something simple like this, many of my clients do not have that. So, we're talking kindergarten level, right?
You are, but
at the same time,
if that is kindergarten level, then there's an awful lot of people still in kindergarten.
Yeah. So it's
see it every single day. The
correct.
The lack of willingness to, to try and go forward and give people more information. It's like still to this day, people gripping onto information because they feel that if they give the information, they're just going to go off and do it themselves. It's like, no, they're looking for a plumber. They're looking for somebody to come and change a tap for them. So if you show them how difficult it is to change a tap or how simple it is to change a tap, they're going to call you to find out more, and we're constantly up against this, as you say, the ethical bribe, the lead magnet, tripwire, whatever you want to call it. And, the lack of understanding that offering that information builds the trust, and it builds the amount of trust that's required to move to the next stage. And then, you can ask them for their phone number. You can ask them for their email address. Let's go and have a coffee and discuss it. But as you say, if you asking them to marry you, then
there's a very, very low chance. And on the first date that they will want to say yes. And I think there's metrics that show, you probably have this metric somewhere, Steve, about how there's a high percentage of people that do not buy when they first come to a website. And so that ethical bribe or that tripwire, the dating calls to action, helps connect you to them, that you can begin a relationship through a drip email series or whatever case might be. And your example, the plumber, a plumber or local service provider, business owner might be listening to this podcast and going, well, I don't think my business could, I don't think, how am I going to provide them something free? Think on the negative side. Think about because people generally think in terms of problems. Most people aren't solution centric in their mind. So they first off think, what's the problem with this? Before how can I fix it? And so if you come up with the 5 sins, the 5 problems, the 5 ways you're going to lose thousands of dollars if you don't do this, or if you do this, that's a great, simple way to create a PDF.
Absolutely.
For your ethical bribe. So even something simple like a book by Don Miller, StoryBrand, is a real basic way to start learning how to, have a more effective homepage or website. Definitely. That can convert, engage,
And his new book is actually very, very good as well. I'm halfway through it at the moment. Among other books that I've got laying around.
Yeah, but thousands that we have to get through.
Yeah, if only we could stop time for a few years, we might catch up. But it really is, telling a story has always been the big thing. And, StoryBrand is all about that. It's all about, taking people through a journey, through a story. And even to the point where I was discussing yesterday with a friend of mine who we're creating a website at the moment. And he was like, right, so what domain name are we going to use? Now, this conversation originally started 5 months ago. What are we going to call it? 5 months, and we still didn't have a name for this thing. And we were speaking to another friend of ours he's a branding expert. And he told me, he said, all right, you leave it with me for a little bit. And he came up with this amazing story. And he looked into the history of it, and he's looked into the people behind it and all the rest of it. And it turns out that it's the dress designer for Elizabeth Taylor.
Okay.
And he's come up with this incredible story about the two of them, which is in books, it's in autobiographies. It's a huge story, this thing. How they became friends, how the dress designer eventually designed the dress of Grace Kelly for her marriage to the royal family in Monaco. And he turned around and he said, look, these two names go together really, really well. I was like, yeah, they do. And there's a story behind it. There's a story that you can use there on where that, where the name came from. And it's that romanticism that if you use it in your marketing message, you're going to get a higher conversion because people understand you better. They understand the what it's all about. And yeah, as you say, you've got to have the ability to do both. And the multi grabbing, as we call it, of of information, and asking for the sale, asking for the time, asking for the booking at the same time. You're going to have people that arrive and just go, I want it, but 99% of the time they don't do that. So thinking about the behavior of your visitors as well is really, really important, which comes back to the metrics and making sure that you've got the tracking of the metrics to move forward as well. So that's really interesting.
And as you were discussing about the story as it relates to the domain, I thought, wow, if you have a story let's say if you have a domain that's branded, that doesn't have your keywords in there, and it's memorable, but the other thing is you don't have to fuss with the technical difficulties of optimizing for a partial match domain or exact match domain later when we're talking about organic SEO. So that story domain is a great idea too, because of that.
That's why I came up with it. Of course I did. But no, you do. You look at some of the companies that are there and all the rest of it, and that's a big thing. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now, and I haven't told you about this one, but this conversation that I've been having with a number of people that have come to me recently about domain names.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing is domain extensions and the
Yeah.
validity of a domain extension. Now, in my eyes, if you're going international, you still need to go for a .com, and you still need to be thinking that .com is the global brand.
Mm-hmm.
However, as you're well aware, there's some really funky domain extensions out there at the moment that you can get
Mm-hmm.
hold of. I mean that you've got all sorts. You've got agency, you've got
Yeah,
marketing, you've
that's
got
right.
toys. You can have pretty much anything and everything now
True,
has got
true.
its own domain name. How do you feel about the domain extension explosion, if you like? I mean, this is coming from a time when we met, where it was .co.uk,
That's right.
.ca, .com, .net,
Mm-hmm.
and if .com wasn't
And
available, you
then
never went for .net because it was horrible.
that's right. That's right. And then now there's .io. A lot of tech companies use .io.
And I do believe that
Um,
you and I tried very, very hard to get a .do at one point, which was I do. And then we spent probably 4 hours on calls to each other going, monkey do? um, or
do.
do, yeah. And then Dominican Republic wouldn't let me register a one-letter domain name. So
Yes,
it
that's
defeats.
right. That's right.
But how do you feel about the top level domains? And do you think that there's validity there? Do you think that having the potential key phrase like agency marketing and things like that in the domain name as an extension is a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know about good or bad. I mean, there's a reason why they're there. There must have been enough of a demand or money flowing for it to come around. But I look at it, I guess the question I'm asking myself is, if I do a search, what shows up on page one? Is it all .coms? Is it a mix of .agency or .marketing? Or I have yet to see any of those fancy TLDs in page one. Doesn't mean it doesn't work, because it comes down to, testing and you're on page and different things like that. One could test it. However, uh, what has been tried and true is still the .com or a .co.uk, depending if it's there. Even when I consult Canadian clients and businesses, I generally tell them, go for the .com if you can. That's by default what people assume is your TLD.
Yeah.
If you're for sure only ever going to serve local, yeah, sure, .ca is fine. But a .com is going to be top dog TLD. And if you can't find a .com, you just dig deeper.
Yep.
Just be creative with your domain or your brand domain. Yeah, but that's just my own personal take on it. Yeah, I 99.9% of the time will look for a .com. If I can't find it, I'll be more creative with the name
Yep.
to get a .com.
Yep. Which is what I believe that I've had to do with certain projects in the past as well. Is you just you end up adding words, taking words out.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an and in the middle, you take it out anyway. If
Mm-hmm.
it's, especially sort of like designer names and things like that, we use by a lot. So it'd be
Mm-hmm.
by David Smith instead of being
Mm-hmm.
David Smith, which
Okay.
you'd never get. So
Okay.
using the word by, especially as now the ridiculous notion that stop words are used in domain URLs and things like that. It's one of those things now where it's not as bad as what it used to be. I mean, you used to add a
Mm-hmm.
the or something in at the beginning, and Google would
Mm-hmm.
take one look at the word the and go, it's not important.
Yeah.
if they've got to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
in front of it, it's just not it. So there is that side of things from my point of view, but I'm very much along the same ilk as you. If you're going
Mm-hmm.
local in the UK, Canada, Australia, all of these places that have got their own top level domains, that for that particular country, if you're going local, brilliant. Even .uk's you know, they're starting to show up now on Google search, but the .coms are the international brands that everybody's looking at. And you know, if you can get a .com, that's the way forward. That's the one that you should be looking at and should be
and yeah, a simple Google search and see what's on page one is a great acid test for what's being rewarded and what's working.
Absolutely. So.
Sherman
Hu, thank you very, very much indeed.
You are welcome, Mr.
As
Hooper.
Brilliant insight into absolutely everything. And for those of you listening, Sherman and I we go through stages of spending hours and hours and hours on the phone. And Sherman works in his satellite offices, which are absolutely amazing. I'm sure the
AKA Starbucks,
the coffee brand won't mind us giving Sherman works from Starbucks a lot, and it will depend where he is, and they've all got names. I believe Boston's in there, and you've got satellite offices all over the place. But Sherman, thank you so much. Great insight. It's been amazing to talk to you again, my friend, and thank you very much indeed for listening.